All right, wanted to play this from the Longhorn side of things. It's Horns at Half Past, brought to you by Dr. Greg Eckert, and a ton of news. Let's start with this. Over this weekend, Jack, both Trey Wisner and Hero Canoe, according to On Texas Football, have made the decision to come back, and they're going to play in the bowl game. Trey Wisner is going to forego an opportunity to go to the NFL, and Hero Canoe, who walked on senior night, the transfer, played 1 year coming in from Ohio State and was just a versatile player on their defensive line. He's going to come back too. So that's two big keys. Jack Endries, the tight end, who's also a one-year guy from Cal, he's going to play in the bowl game too. And so is Jelani McDonald. There'll be a lot of guys playing in the bowl game who will then make decisions after that game on their NFL future, which if they're playing in the bowl game, Jack, that tells you they're not going to enter the transfer portal like 11 or 12 of the other Longhorns have.
That's right.
Their decision is between coming back for another season at Texas or going to the NFL. And as Steve Sarkisian said, use this opportunity against Michigan to show your stuff. Put out another piece of resume tape for the NFL. I understand there's the injury risk of that, but at the same time, if you're Trey Wisner, if you're Jack Endries, Hero Canoe, you blow up and have a big bowl game, you put that on tape, maybe that even improves your stock against a team like Michigan and all their issues. But either way, by the way, Michigan had a bad weekend. Texas had a good weekend as far as the hiring of a new defensive coordinator, Will Muschamp, on Thursday into Friday. But Kenny Dillingham was apparently the number one target of Michigan. He signed a new contract with Arizona State. He's not leaving. Kalen DeBoer's team beat Oklahoma. They're playing into the New Year week, and he's not leaving Alabama. So Michigan, I said this to Noah. Noah's not going to be here today or tomorrow. He's headed back to his hometown. But this can be a hard job to fill because when you got an internal investigation going on in Ann Arbor of the whole program by an outside law firm, and there's already issues there that are, is Ward Manuel even going to be the AD when this investigation is over? Well, he's leading the head coaching search, and coaches want to know who they're playing for, who they're working with. And there's a very strong chance that come January, Ward Manuel's going to be gone. So if you're Michigan, it's almost going to be a lost offseason where you're going to have to hire a new AD who then's going to hire a new coach, and you're going to be behind the coaching cycle curve. And you might just want to promote Biff Poggi for the year. You might get to that point.
Right.
If your top candidates aren't coming and Jed Fish is out at Washington and Kenny Dillingham is out, might want to move on.
Then who is it?
All right, as for Will Muschamp, so Texas, Hero Canoe, Trey Wisner playing in the bowl game, might both come back. Trey Wisner is coming back. He's going to play another season at Texas regardless of the bowl game. Still waiting. Jelani McDonald looks like he's coming back to play. Trevor Goosby's the big one. I think we heard from our buddy Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton on Friday. Both think he's leaning to coming back for another year to play left tackle at Texas. So we'll keep an eye on those stories. But wanted to get to the big story of the weekend. That was the hiring of Will Muschamp, the firing of Pete Kwiatkowski. Let me start with this, an outside view. I said on Friday, Jack, that I love this move for Texas. I think it's, after 5 years, coaching continuity is huge, and I talk about that a lot, but maybe to change the message, change the scene a little bit, and the Texas defense did not live up to expectations, nor did the offense, and you'll start talk about that coming up. He's not, saying he's totally blameless to what went on this year to go 9-3 and not make the playoff, but he felt like it was too good an opportunity to go get Will Muschamp to bring that defense up to an even higher level with knowledge of the SEC like Will Muschamp is going to bring. Listen to David Pollack. David Pollack used to be on ESPN. I wish he still was. I like him a lot. But he's doing his own podcast thing, and he heard the Will Muschamp news to Texas and said, damn, that's a good get.
And here's what, if I'm a Texas fan, I'm super jacked up. I'm super excited about. Will Muschamp comes in. He now comes in as my DC. You know why it's so important if I'm a Texas fan? Because I've got the perfect personality to go with Steve Sarkisian. Sarkisian is an offensive genius, so good at what he does, extremely calm, cool, collected. So what do you need? You always need the yin and the yang. You need someone to be the other side of that coin. Will Muschamp, let's be honest, we've seen this for a long time. All
right, so there's David Pollack echoing some of the things we said on Friday, the good cop, bad cop idea, the idea that, Sark, and you heard Sark here saying this. Here's Sark from Friday. Friday morning after our show, Sark had an availability to address, where the roster is, and they also why he moved on from his defensive coordinator, Dwayne Aquina. And listen to Sark. One of the things we talked about is not being in the college football playoff. Although frustrating as heck to sit back and watch your rivals play in these playoff games, teams you beat. That's just the way the system goes. But it has given Sark a chance to step back and have a look at the program from above and make some bold changes. Here's Sark from Friday.
Having gone to the playoffs 2 years in a row, it felt like, I don't know when year 3, year 4, even ended going into year 5, it just felt like we just kept rolling, right? Because our seasons were going so long. There was so much change in college football. It just felt like keep going, keep going, keep going. And it was probably, quite frankly, difficult to actually do a real audit on our organization because it was just an ongoing process from one to the next to the next. And one thing that came out of not making the playoffs, which, believe me, I wish we were in, and I still think we should be in, and I don't feel bad saying that. It gave me a little more time, and it gave me some time to step back and really look at this thing from a 10,000-foot view of say, okay, some of these issues may have reared their ugly head this year, but when I look back a year ago, 2 years ago, I could see the crack starting to form, and I didn't address them then when maybe I could have, but there was so much happening, and we were having success that now was a time where I felt like, man, I can really address some of these issues. We have the time to do it. But the one thing I know that we've got the right core values in place in our organization. We got the right leadership. We've got a great staff. We've got great players in our program that are not only really good players, really good people, and they understand what our culture is about. And so, when I look at some of these players that have grown up in our program in the eyes, they know what this place stands for. And so I don't think we'll let that falter. And to your point, and I think the men that we're bringing into our organization now, they believe in the same things we believe in. And you guys will get a chance. You know Will. You know what he stands for. You'll get a chance to be around Coach Jaluk. You'll see what he stands for. And the players that play for those guys already understand what they stand for. And the players we're recruiting. We haven't changed the philosophy of the types of players we're trying to bring in our organization. But again, every year you got to recreate it, right? You can't just assume it's just going to keep going. I've got to do a great job. Our staff's got to do a great job of recreating that when we get back to winter conditioning of what is our culture, what do we believe in, here's how we go about reestablishing that year in and year out.
All right, so there's Sark, and we've talked about that a lot, to not be in the playoff, to not getting ready for a playoff game while trying to do the portal stuff and all the exit interviews and high school recruiting and all that has allowed him to make these moves. And that move, the boldest move, he mentioned Jabbar Jaluk coming in to coach running backs. Chad Scott is out, and Pete Kwiatkowski out, and Will Muschamp in. Listen to Sark when asked about Will Muschamp, is he kind of a second head coach? And something I've talked about last Friday, he has coaching experience in the conference, in the SEC at Florida, where he was a coach of the year in 2012, head coach of the year. Also at South Carolina. And he's been, as we said, 21 seasons. He has been a coordinator or a head coach in the SEC. So that's something Pete Kwiatkowski did not have. Dwayne Akina did not have. They're new to the SEC. Sark understands the SEC. His offensive staff, which, again, they've got to be better on offense, all were at Alabama. So they get the rigors of the Southeastern Conference. Listen to Sark talk about what Will Muschamp brings with his experience in this conference.
I do. I love Will's level of intensity. I love his passion. I love his demanding nature of which he coaches. But in the same token, I love the love that he gets, the connection that he gets from his players. And if you talk to anybody who's ever played for Will Muschamp, they talk about that passion. They talk about that intensity. They talk about the demanding nature of which he coaches. Be it on the same token, they talk about who he is as a person and the connection that he has. And so for me, I love the fact that on game day, I can spend a little more time focusing on offensive football and allow him to kind of be with those players, making those calls. If we need to call a timeout when we're on defense, I don't always have to be on the defensive headset every single play of defense. I can go talk to Arch. I can be with Coach Milwee, Coach Flood. And so, again, I think there was a level to this that maybe it's hard to see, from just looking through the window. But ideally, when you get under the hood, you're like, oh, there's some reasoning behind what we did to help not only the defensive side of the ball, but actually help us offensively. And so there's layers to it. But, again, I think the passion, the energy, the intensity is real. And that's something that I really have felt like I've wanted and needed, and Coach Nansen provides that, and we got it. But, man, in this league, you got to have it all, and you got to have it every week, as we know, because there's challenging games that week in and week out that you got to get yourself ready for.
All right, so Will Muschamp, and kind of a second head coach, Jack, that really – and, look, Sark said that a couple times, and I know it raised some eyebrows. Is Sark actually saying he wasn't able to coach the offense as well because he had to babysit the defense? He did allude to that. If you read between the lines, he was talking about how he felt like he had to spend more time, worried about the defense and what they were doing on that side of the ball, and to take his eye off the ball. He feels like doing this gives him a chance to recenter, refocus, and again, second head coach. Let Will Muschamp handle some of that, and we'll see how that marriage goes. But it seems like, to David Pollock's point, that this is a good yin to the yang. This is a good cop to the bad cop, and I can see that being an optimal move for Texas, especially with his knowledge of this conference.
Right, and we know Will Muschamp, if you just say, hey, man, just do defense, it tends to go pretty well.
Yes.
Also, I think we
since
can
he's
all
31
agree.
years old, winning national championships under Nick Saban.
Right. If it's not giving up play calling, I think we agree anything to take, in Sark's own mind, things off of his plate, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Wear
well,
fewer
and
hats.
again, is there ego involved here with Sark not giving up play calling? That's going to be a fair question. We talk about the law of diminishing returns. He still pretty much runs the front office with Brandon Harris as the GM. He has oversight over all of that. He's the final say. He's got the offense, and now at least he has, somebody he believes can be a second head coach running his defense. But can I play this for you, Jack? This is Horns That Have Passed, brought to you by Dr. Greg Ecker. We just talked about the Texans, right? D'Amico Ryans. They've won, 10 of the last 12 games. And you know what happened when they were 0-3? He gave up play calling on defense. And he handed it to Matt Burke. And Matt Burke's been calling the defense, and they won 7 in a row. And listen to D'Amico Ryans. He was on the Rich Eisen show on this radio station on Friday, ahead of their game with the Raiders. And Rich asked him about what giving up play calling, because whether he was the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, which earned him the job at Texas. His dream job was coming back to Houston, where he was a star player after coming out of Alabama. But even when he came, he called the plays and the defense for the first couple of seasons. He gave that up this year to Matt Burke. And listen to the difference he says it's made for him.
Grown in an area where I had to just kind of step back as a coach. And first coming in, it was like I'm on this defense, and I'm going to make sure the defense is right, make sure we're playing great defense, and kind of let the offensive guys handle it and do what they have to do. But, I took a step back this year and just wanted to oversee everything. All right, really, truly be in a position to help all of my coaches. And I feel like I'm a better coach because I'm doing a better job of coaching my coaches, right? And I feel like I have better command on game day of all 3 phases and what's going on. How do I want it to look? What do I want to run? Like in all 3 phases, I feel like I'm in much better command now as a head coach. And hopefully my coaches feel the same way, that I'm helping them out a little bit more as well. But it's a lot less stressed out.
Mm-hmm. All right, so D'Amico Ryans being candid. And, look, this is still going to be a question of Sark. I mean, it feels like every coordinator, whether it's offense or defense, and I shouldn't say ever, but in a high level, the coordinators who give up the play calling and then hand it off to someone that they trust, it works out. It works out. And that's why I say to D'Amico Ryans, thank you, D'Amico, because, I was questioning his game management. I was questioning his fourth quarter decision-making. Well, it's gotten better since he's not locked into calling defense in the fourth quarter of games. He's working the refs now. He's doing the things a head coach does. And as much as I like the hiring of Will Muschamp to hand off some of those duties, Sark is still adamant that he's going to be calling the plays. And that's the thing I don't get. That's ego, right? I agree with a lot of what Sark is doing, but at the same time,
right.
You just heard D'Amico Ryans say, when I came in from San Francisco, that's what I was good at. I was the best in the league. We had the number 1 defense, and so I wanted to keep doing it. But he's learned over 2.5 seasons, man, I got to be the coach of my coaches. I got to be observing everything from above on game day, which is what Nick Saban understood. When Nick Saban won his first national title at LSU, he had a 31-year-old defensive coordinator, Will Muschamp, and he wasn't calling the defense on game day. He was involved, but wasn't. And then he developed this guy, Kirby Smart, who came through, and Pete Golding, who's now coaching at Ole Miss. It's okay to give it up, and you can still be really good at it and be heavily involved. I still think Sark needs to consider that. I know there's pressure coming. I just see too many examples of guys who do give it up. Ryan Day at Ohio State, and now they're winning national championships, where it works. Same time, because again, in the last 25 years, there's been one head coach who calls his own offensive plays and won a national championship. One. And that was Jimbo Fisher. Kind of an odd year with Jameis Winston.
Yeah, with an all-time college quarterback.
You all can go look it up, but that's the only time it's happened in 25 seasons, where a coach who's calling the offensive plays. You got to go all the way back before Jimbo Fisher was Jim Tressel at Ohio State. Remember that? That was a long time ago, and their offense wasn't great at Ohio State then. They had Maurice Clarett and they beat Miami. That's the other time that it's happened. But that's going to be on Sark. He's made this move. He thinks it'll help him with the better offensive side. Interesting times for sure. And Steve Sarkisian going into the all-important year 6 with Arch Manning trying to maximize that final year with the quarterback.